Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Actually, you do kind of look like Wolverine.
Well, there you
I
Good job.
thought that, but I was lazy enough to not say it.
go.
It's all right.
Well,
Everyone needs to have an alter ego.
Yeah, well, it's a compromise between my wife and I. It's like I wanted to have a beard and she didn't want me to. So. There you go.
All right. I will call the Thursday, May 22nd, Grand Marais Library Board of Trustees meeting to order. I am Sarah McNair, board chair.
Ryan Lang, librarian and minute taker.
Kevin LeVore, I'm the vice president.
Anna Limbier, board member.
Nancy Jaguar, board member.
Dave Mills, Cook County Commissioner.
Sue McClone, board member.
Mike Gary, city councilor.
Amanda St. John, library director.
All right. The consent agenda. We have to approve the agenda as presented, approve the minutes, and approve payment of bills. Do we have any changes to the agenda?
We do. Yes. I wish.
That too.
Okay, yeah.
Right,
Yes.
right. May
It is May.
22.
Yep.
Yes. One thing that I would like to recommend is that we table the policy for security cameras. The reason is because the administrator does have a legal counsel reviewing those and they need some more time. So I'd like to get feedback from them and then bring it to the next board meeting. Okay. The second thing that I want to bring to the table is discussion of the 215 account. We need to make some decisions about the monies in that account, and I might recommend that you do that before other orders of business for spending.
Could we add that in after your report?
Sure.
Is that it? All right.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I
I
will
second.
second. Just in front of Nancy. So you heard that right.
Choose your second.
We really have to do the consent agenda, not just the amendment,
Oh, right.
because there's minutes and payments of bills that have to be done.
Yep.
So I want to broaden that motion.
I will amend my motion to include the consent agenda.
I will second.
Motion second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, thank you. Let's move on to your report.
I'm very sad to say that librarian Erica Turness has accepted a new position at the county, and her last day is going to be May 30. The position for the librarian one will be posted. It's on our website, and I'm working with the city to get it pushed out to other outlets. For programs, we do have a winter reading update from Erica, and it says that the program continues to be very popular. Over the 3 months of the program, patrons picked up 240 bingo cards and completed over 400 bingos. This age group 6 to 11 really knocked it out of the park with 39 entrants completing 240 of the bingos.
That's great.
Our Pride celebration this month is going to feature Brian Malloy, who is the writer in residence that we have this year, doing workshops almost every month. And his workshop is called Writing Your Coming Out Story. And he and Ryan and Cook County Pride are working together to have that offsite as part of the event.
Is there going to be anything else that the library is doing? In regards-
Not this year.
no little books stand or collection. Okay, just at the Pride meeting, we're putting together a thing to say here's all the things. So if you're going to have a thing or do anything else,
Like a
then we'd like to
display.
put it in there in that so that we can say, hey, don't during this month you can check out these other things for Pride.
Do you have a publication date? Like, what's the deadline for that?
It's mainly going to be just on our website. it's not gonna be a press release, it's just gonna be on the website, so people can go to the website and look for other things, so if anything comes up, send it to me and I'll make sure it gets on the website.
Thank you so much. And thanks for working on that program. 2 items for the facility. The biennial carpet cleaning is scheduled for completion in June, and the library's home security system cameras have arrived. We need the policy first. And that is the report.
Okay, any other questions or comments for Amanda?
Just one comment, I was walking by and the garden looks very nice, so that must have, the gardeners must have started working.
They have. I actually think they'll be letting it grow a little bit for a while and come back in July for some maintenance. But it looks very different.
It looks very nice.
Yeah.
And the Bergenia is all in bloom for anybody who's a fan.
How long did Erica work here?
6 years, 6.5 years, I think. Okay. For the 215, I have some documents for everybody. I'll just send them around. Probably I should have one.
Problem. We'll do that.
Thanks.
Put it in the notes, you didn't have it memorized.
Oh, man. Okay. On Tuesday, I was meeting with the city finance director and received clarification about the 215 account. And long story short, there are 2 buckets of money in what we call the 215. One is in deficit, the other is not, and we need to make some decisions about how to move forward. So to take that a little bit deeper, we generally refer to this thing that we have as something called the 215. It's like an umbrella name for 2 accounts. One account is also called the 215, and that's generally what I use when I am coding bills. So, you know, if we're installing air source heat pumps, I code it to the 215. It goes and that's where I've been spending from. We also have this other thing that is called the Hazel Matthews or the 216. And 216, this name is a remnant from a way that the account had been treated in the past. So now if you were to look at our expense sheets, on the 215 where it shows what we're spending, it says the 215 up here and it says 215 down here, but that's Hazel Matthews / 216. So the naming can be just a little bit challenging, but essentially we have 2 accounts in this thing called the 215. As you can see in our policy, there are some notes about how you all are trying to spend that money and have it used. And if you look at policy K, which I just passed out under restricted funds, it says account 215 restricted fund. These accounts are comprised of donations to the library and grants. Some funds are designated by the donor for specific purposes, some are not. Any funds not spent in the given year and accrue until needed for expenditure as designated by the library board. A minimum balance is to be maintained in this account of $10,000 for an insurance deductible, $20,000 for computer replacement. Nancy, this part I might have memorized, or NL, whoever said that. And then the balance is to be considered exigency to keep things operating and should not drop below 6 months. So when a couple of meetings ago, I think it was February, when we did a review of the financial position, and I came and I said, you have about $271,000, and that is about the 6 months plus the 10 plus the 20. And that's at the point that the board said, hey, we've got what we want to have in that account, but we don't have a lot of more. Okay, are we all on a page so far? Okay, thank you. Then, so it's specified in your policy that I should, when I use from the 215, I can be using that for these reasons, but not limited to them. Grounds, building, furniture and equipment, collection expansion, technology expansion of services, security, programs and shows, marketing campaigns, and other non-salary unanticipated expenses as may arise. The Hazel Matthews Fund, account 216, the next piece says, I want you to use this bucket of money as follows. This is a bequest from Hazel Matthews to the city of Grand Marais to be held in trust for future needs of the library. Monies from this account are to be used in such a manner that it doesn't lessen any or substitute any monetary support from the state, county, city, or any other public funds. A pause there. It's a bequest, and the language that's included here is from the will, and it's language that's common in any wills of bequests for the for monies left to the library. They always say you can't lessen whatever. Okay, so this is where that statement is coming from or why it's here. Then boards prior specified that this money could be used but is not limited to staff development, exploration, and trial demonstrations of new services, certificates of deposit and investment vehicles, professional consultant fees, and endowment fund building. So that's what you could use it for, but it's not limited to that. In general, when I code bills, I put them all to the to the first account, to the 215, and you can see in our expense sheets, if you had those handy, or when you go home, you can see that that's where all of the codes. That's where we have the most expansive list of codes to meet this list, and also because that's what we use all the time. Okay. So now, what is happening is that the 215 has been overspent by $70,604, and that number keeps changing because we're still spending money at the library. For example, Taproot Landscaping hasn't gone through the for you to see it in the expense sheets yet. What Kim wants to do is make sure that the 215 is at least balanced to zero, but understand that this is a fluctuate, like we're still spending money, so it might take us a couple of passes to get at this. She's advising you to bring this to a cash zero. On this colorful sheet, which is what I'm pointing at with my finger, you can see a number that is $278,871.55. That is all in the Hazel Matthews Fund. And when I said at a prior meeting, when I had spoken to Kim to get information about this and asked like how much is in the 215, there's the 271 or whatever the number was that I was reporting in, I think it was February. Okay, so the first thing is we are advised that you might want to zero this 215 account, and there are different ways to do that. And the second thing is this policy, you might consider amending it in different ways. For example, you could consider consolidating Hazel Matthews and the 215 to eliminate all of this confusion in the future. Have one account, always know how much is in there, so forth and so on. Before you make that decision, I have been reviewing the Hazel Matthews files that I have on hand in the library. And I am very curious, and it doesn't say it in here. Remember, Nancy, when you were talking about wanting to have a bylaws policy that future boards would know what's going on? Mm-hmm. This is that situation, that moment, right? It doesn't explain to me in here why Hazel was separated. It's a grant. It is a bequest like any other bequest, but it's separated in the monies, and I imagine there was a good reason for that. So,
Did Kim have any ideas about that?
so hold on. I'm laying it out. I'm trying to be thorough
Okay. Sorry.
because I don't know what will be useful for everybody here. You got to do the whole thing. You got to take the stack, okay? There you go. So what I'm providing you right now, and you might want to take this home and review it for next meeting too. You have a copy of the original will and testament of Hazel Matthews. You also have a sample of the Wilbert Storland will. And I've given you 2 pages from the will and testament of Margaret Lacey, who has also requested money to the library, so that you can review and see that the language and how each of these is written is the same.
Really? This is one, this is one. This one. Yeah, or Lacey. No, I've got it. I'm sorry.
Did we have enough to go around? It's okay. I'm familiar with the documents if you want to see them, Ryan, as the minute taker or anything. Okay. So for example, if you if you just open up Hazel Matthews and look to page 3, that there's the language that you see in your policy. Monies from this account are to be used in such a manner that it does not lessen or substitute for monetary support. That thing is on about the 2nd page where it says the city of Grand Marais. So this would be one way that you could consider if you'd like to consolidate the 2 accounts and function in that way going forward with this account. But I also have one, I don't know what the original bequest was, how much that was, and how much of the bequest is interest. You might be interested in knowing that to make your decision. And then I have this document, which has no date, no initials. I don't know who wrote it, where it's from. It's just a typed note that says, these rules shall apply to trustees, library board, and Grand Marais City Council regarding the bequest under the will of Hazel Matthews. The principal shall be kept intact and only the interest shall be spent. If there's a proposal to use any part of the principal, it may be used only after a public hearing and approval by the library board and the city council. Notice must be given to the public by publication in legal newspaper, and written notice must be given by mail to the library board and each library board member. The hearing shall be conducted by the city council. I don't know who wrote this. I don't know what the original amount was. I think it was $100,000, but the records aren't clear. And I have an entire folder of communications between board members and legal counsel about the account that I would need to go through, and preferably not alone, to determine what happened historically to make this account be special. Because the record doesn't say, here's an overview of what happened, the critical decisions that were made, and here's the sign off by your administrator, what have you. By the lawful enforceable will, if I'm understanding this correctly, we're meeting Hazel Matthews' request. She doesn't tell you that you can only use it as a principal and interest. But this document suggests there might have been subsequent conversations about it that could apply. And I can't answer those questions for you tonight because I don't have the answer.
It does seem like something that should go to the
Do you
city
wanna
attorney. You should, I mean, that, because we're not qualified to say that one way or another, no matter how much we want to read it. If there's a question, we're going to start to deviate from what has been done. I mean, we don't know, maybe we don't know 100% why they started doing it, but we've been following suit. we're gonna deviate from that, we should really get the city attorney to look at it and tell us like, yes, you can, or there's nothing that says you can't. Because I don't think that and I would bet that any documents that we have should also be at City Hall and should be scanned in at this point. So I think we hand it to them or make a request, I should say.
I would throw out or posit that since there is no signatures on this, since there is no time and date stamp, that this would probably in a court not be a legal document because it has.
But we don't know where it came from.
We
It could have
don't know
been
where it
part
came
of a
from. We
bunch
have
of
no-
other documents that were signed.
Do we have anybody? Do we have anybody of the Matthews family that is still around?
That's a good question, or from a
That's,
prior
I'm
board.
not saying that we ignore it, but this is not a legal document.
Right. Oh, no,
I
you're
would
probably
think that
right.
Nobody, I don't think any lawyer would stand up and say, well, since we found it in the city, it's a legal document because it has no time.
No, but that's
no
clearly not an
signatures.
original document either.
That's
So we would want to get those.
Could be part of something.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. That's probably
One
just
page.
one piece, and that it could be part of a document that is, because like when we have our meetings, our head city meetings, there are a series of documents that might have been included in there, and it could be there. But it's going to be historical now, and we have to dig back. But that I still think it would be the city attorney to tell us whether
Yes.
it's
This is-
really enforced or not.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
So 2004, so it's 20 years old.
No.
No, this
Oh,
is
so-
87.
Yeah, I
Oh,
think-
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're looking at the some timelines here, I think that Hazel, well, we have the will at 87, 88. And then I don't think the dates are in here. I believe that this account was treated like an endowment fund. I think it was treated like our community foundation funds, but in-house. And that there was a principal amount and that the interests were being used for the library. The two community foundations that the library has were created much later. I think it was in the 90s. I'd have to research, but I believe they came later, so that this wasn't available. As we get more information, a few pathways that I can present for consideration just to be thinking about, or so you can give me better feedback and direction. If it is the intention to continue using this like an endowment fund, we could add to, combine, somehow incorporate what's we have since established. One of the suggestions for how we would proceed with creating a zero cash in the 215 is so there's a difference between cash and what is in a money market. If you look again at the colorful sheet that I handed to you, the Hazel Matthews amounts are in the bottom two of the top section. I know it's right here. It says SSB, State Security Bank, LMCIT, but you want to look at the one that's on the bottom that has the 137,841 in it. So if you wanted to zero the account today, one of the ways that the finance director would do that is to take money out of this market, turn it into cash, and pay it. It's Hazel Matthew monies that would pay out the outstanding amounts in the 215. Could you all turn to exhibit 6000 here, CCF XYZ? I'm just kidding. This sheet right here.
I don't have.
I didn't get that one. I didn't grab properly.
There-
Wait,
there
wait,
it
there
is.
it
It's
is. There
there.
it is. I got it.
Okay, good.
You got it.
Oh, it's his.
Oh, he's there.
Another, so you see, I was trying to find out what the principle was on Hazel when I found that piece of paper that Enno had in his hand a minute ago before the meeting. But the plan was to discuss with you, here are a list of expenses that I have coded to the 215 that I would like to know if you would support being coded to 216 Hazel Matthews, whatever you want to call the other thing, given your policy. So for example, we could, let's just take some of the big ones here. Twin Ports Custom Climate Air Source Heat Pumps at $37,000. Does that for you fit into exploration and trial demonstrations of new service?
Yes.
That could be recoded.
Really? Tell me how.
Well, let's see, let's take a look at that. Well, it's not limited to that,
It
though.
is not limited to those.
It's not
that list.
limited to that, and, well, let's see, professional and consultant fees.
There's several consultant fees, and we could discuss what each of those are if you wanted to make a determination on a case-by-case basis. But Hazel Matthews does specify that it covers consultant fees. So for example, when I worked with BTR Architects on the safety improvement plan, that would be a candidate. We could look at, is Jeremy Riddlebauer working, so the computers were purchased by Library Friends grants. Is Jeremy's support and the introduction of antivirus and DNS protection and exploration, is that consultant and explorational technology, what have you?
Well, thinking about the heat pump,
Yeah, I mean, exploration and trial of demonstration of new services are new services of the library. I don't see how. the
new
heat pump
services
fit
of
in
the
there.
library, or of new services, well, maybe
Yeah, I'm
not.
not sure about that. And then professional consultant fees, I'm not sure that that's, well, again, my interpretation would not include those kinds of consultant fees.
Well.
I-
no,
Would it
they're not
conclude like
limited to-
BTR architect, like consulting with an architect? My understanding of the Hazel Matthews Fund has been that it would be capital, like if you needed to build a new building, if you
Mhm.
needed, because even when you look at, I keep talking to you guys about this thing I put in your packet, this thing that I send you every month, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
215, here's Hazel down here, here's where I'm generally coding everything up here in the 215. When I get down here, the codes that I have available to do for bills are capital outlay for building, for land, for furniture and equipment.
Ah,
There is an architect's fees thing down there, which we could use for one of these.
the capital outlay for furniture and equipment, that fits
Do
the,
you see how it really feel? It has a very different feel. Like this capital outlay, I would feel more comfortable doing air source heat pump. You can have this for a moment.
No,
Yeah.
I'm
Do you see this down here?
Mm-hmm.
And then staff development is listed in Hazel.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
that
those
seems
are
for
obvious.
sure. I mean, yeah,
That's- yeah.
absolutely.
But
The
the
capital-
big one is, it would have been nice to get $37,000
Mhm.
all at once
And
out of
that's
this
a
project.
capital outlay though, if there's a
Yeah, maybe
coding
it
for
can
that,
go
I don't
somewhere
see why
else.
that wouldn't fit.
Yeah, and that's in the policy, but it's not in the will.
Yeah,
So,
but-
yeah, so we
Go-
can,
We've got a code for it, and in the will it says possible uses but not limited to. Even if she doesn't say capital outlay in the will, we've got a code for the capital outlay. So, excuse me, somebody must have decided that was another possible use.
But your policy doesn't say I can use it that way.
Ah,
And so do you see where some of this
yeah. it's
confusion is
moving.
coming from? Like if I were to install an emergency exit right now and you said spend 215, I would code it Hazel
Mhm.
because that's where the capital outlay is. Well, I guess it's in both places. So this is another reason why like it'd be really valuable, just from a logistics standpoint, to be able to move toward consolidating the two funds and clarifying the policy.
Yeah, I would, so was that what Kim suggested, is to combine those accounts?
Kim suggested that if you, yes.
Okay.
Kim's
You're
person.
using them that way, so you might as well combine them.
So if you look at the wills, they all use the same template language. It can't lessen government support
Sure.
for operations.
Yeah. It's not an operations thing. Yeah.
And just the only hesitation I had about following the plan of advising that is that there are these conversations
Yeah.
that involve lawyers trying to use the account in a different way, and I don't have a guiding document that says what was the principle and what were you doing with the account, like what was agreed. Was anything agreed?
Yeah, that's why I would really like to get that clarified, because I'd be with you if I could see that that either doesn't matter, doesn't count, or whatever.
Could
You know, I
we-
could get there, but where, other than in here, where does it say for the Matthews that those funds can be used for structural things? Where does it say that? I
It doesn't.
doesn't say it anywhere.
It's
Yeah.
that I'm still going through the records, but her thing, just use it for the benefit of the library and not to lessen support.
So
That was it.
From public funds.
Right. Yeah. No, I got
Could
that
we-
100%.
Could we agree that we should take the steps we need, which would be include consulting with the county attorney and looking at for records and so on. We could take the needed steps
Yeah.
toward consolidation of the two funds.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. If we can get clarity on.
Like, where's my,
Yes.
is my thing back?
So we can agree that the funds, at least theoretically, should be combined, but we'll have to take the necessary steps to be sure that it's kosher.
Agreed.
Do we have to, somebody have to move that, or?
That could be an
You
instruction.
might want to be clear before we move on how this is going to be used while you don't know what we're doing. Well, none of us have agreed on anything.
Right.
That there are still incoming bills that need to be coded.
Then I would say we don't deviate from what we have been doing. Can that just be the way of it?
Yeah,
We're just
that
gonna
makes sense.
keep going as we've done. We'll get clarity, and then even if we go further in the hole, at least we know. We'd get some clarity. We'd know where we're at. We'd be know worse
Yeah.
off. Kevin, you had to look.
Oh, I'm just trying to sink it all in.
Okay.
How did we get this way?
Well, that's what nobody knows.
That's what. Well, yeah. I mean,
That's why we
that's
need
why we're
clarity.
like, oh my God, what?
That's why we need clarity.
And Davey, you've been quiet.
We can check the minutes, right?
Well, that's what I was thinking
87,
too,
88 or something.
because
like,
we've got those.
Do we? Where?
We should.
Minutes from 87.
They should be available.
right.
Yeah,
maybe
but
it's
But it would have had to-
89,
oh, no.
Yeah, you never know.
When it came to council, it
Are
could have
the
come to
minutes,
council
are the
too.
minutes all on file in the city?
I know they scanned the heck out of everything they had, so if the city had it, no more microfiche. I oppose.
Yeah,
Hard to work with.
so let's see if I understand this. So we agree, we'll continue doing what we've been doing,
Mhm.
because we know we can do that. And at the same time, we will work toward the consolidation, or so to speak. We'll look at all of the, what surrounding circumstances.
Yeah.
So we can work toward this, the consolidation of the two funds.
Yep, just gotta get clarity on that legalese.
Do we need to,
Can I add another piece while we're talking? I'm
Okay.
trying to do my best to represent this. The Hazel monies are in money accounts. To put them, they have to be moved to cash. So just these numbers on here are going to start changing. They're gonna be removed from an interest state. If they get put into, if we put all the money into accounts, they'll be moved from an interest state into the checking accounts, if you will.
I have a question. Do you ever code anything 216? Does anything ever come out of this
Well,
account?
Well, first of all, 216 doesn't even exist anymore. It's a remnant name. Because I have to wonder if it was used like an endowment fund where this was like an interest fund. But yes, I code things there. Like I said,
You said you've been using 215 even, but if does money have we ever taken money out of Hazel?
do you know, when I talked to Kim, so I feel like I coded things there when we did the flood. I feel like I coded to Hazel. From Kim's perspective, nobody ever touches the Hazel Matthews Fund. Please, would you do something with that money? But
She's
I don't.
encouraging us to spend that stuff.
She's encouraging consolidation. She's encouraging.
So really, the only thing holding
Simpli-
us up.
As if it's not legal.
Yeah.
That's a thing. So
So, what I'm hearing, continue like we have been doing. Take this to the administrator, finance director, and preferably the legal counsel, and get clarification on the documents that we have as to what we legally can do so that the board can make a decision. We'll have this on the board agenda for next month. And also, you provided suggestions on consulting minutes from 87, 89, or finding surviving board members who would have been working on this at that time, so I can understand the context of what happened and why it's important.
It'd be hard for anybody to remember that many years ago.
oh yeah, that's a while ago.
If you really
Yeah.
wanted to, you could contact Steve because he was very
Adamant about this.
into the Hazel Matthews Fund. Like it was a regular
Conversation for him. Do you remember any of those conversations?
Well, my memory is that we could use it for building things, and it was kind of a reserve for those types of improvements and investments.
It's coded that way, but it's not in the policy that way. And
Yeah, well, in the policy is possible uses, but are not limited to.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, they all have a similar slant, but
Using it
if you say not limited to, that's like
Yeah.
okay, everything then. Like,
Yeah.
it's-
And that's the thing, like what is not limited to mean, and that's what is what what is what's the definition of that?
no
But
limits.
I think there is a definition of that. That's what I'm saying. Like there is a legal definition of what do they mean by that in
Well-
this context, and because limited, not limited to, but there could be a limit to what does that mean in this context. I don't think it means that it's totally wide open, because if it did, then what's the point?
Well, that's kind of what Kim is saying.
Yeah.
So that's
That's why
But
we would
using
like
it,
to know.
using it for capital improvements, so to speak, I think is in the spirit of the,
Yeah,
using
and
it for the good of the library.
oh, for sure. And then, but the only caveat there is the wanting to know, like, well, but they've asked for there to be a reserve of some amount.
mhm.
It's like, okay, fair enough.
One thing that occurs to me, and this may not be relevant, but I belong to a church in the Twin Cities that had, they were very lucky, they had a lot of funds with special purposes and that had been bequeathed to them. Unfortunately, some of those special purposes were no longer relevant.
Right.
And so they did get some legal counsel and were able to change
And
that.
that's what that is.
Yes.
That's exactly what that
it.
is.
Then that's what we really need to do, I think.
Is that gives you the ability in the future to make a decision that says, like, well, they said these things, but we don't have,
Yeah.
we're not using
Exactly.
these different things.
So hopefully the city attorney could, think about that in that spirit. I don't know, but I know that was,
Or let us know
that
if
was
it's an
done in
open
that
door.
church. What?
Yeah, you could just let us know, is it an open door? And if
Yeah.
it is an open door, let's walk
Then we'll
through.
do it.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
We need it.
Given how long it took me to explain this, in other words, given the complexity of the monies, how they're used, how they're coded, how they're in the money markets versus cash and so on, which is not my strength. Is there a board member who would feel good about working through this with me?
Did you volunteer, Kevin? Is that what I heard?
She voluntold him.
I just should have volunteered him. I don't know.
Kevin's got a lot on his plate, but let's see what Kevin says.
I could.
Would the board support Kevin acting as an agent?
Hell yes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. So you and I will want to get together in the next few days and just get a handle on the conversation a little bit. And I'd like you to see the Hazel Matthews records that I have, and we'll make a plan together
Okay.
and bring something back to the board for the next board meeting.
This whole thing looks like it was a done deal by the first quarter of '87. So they probably hopped on it pretty fast. And when you start looking at records, it's probably in '87.
Of course, is this when she passed, or is this
This
when
is
it was?
filed in the city on March of '87.
Well, we don't know.
But we don't know when
Yeah,
she died.
if that's when the will was filed, then,
We probably didn't start anything before we got a will, right?
Yeah.
or money.
Yeah.
maybe.
So,
But funny,
She could have passed 10 years later. I mean, we don't know.
Right.
right?
oh, gee, I didn't think of that. I assume this is when
That's a Google search.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And funny story, I'm pretty sure the city has capital reserve. Right, but not for the library. The library has their own capital reserve, is that?
That is my
That
understanding.
sounds right to me.
Yeah, and then what about operating reserve?
An operating reserve?
Wasn't there a,
Oh, I mean, you mean for us here at the library?
yeah, and the city
Yeah.
also has that, but yeah, at the library.
I think that is, we were just reading that.
That's the 211, I see.
Okay.
Just, yeah, so for library funds,
Also,
You-
I'm sorry, 215 is just 30,000, is that the
No,
minimum?
D3 and 4.
I'm sorry?
So under restricted funds, letter D, Roman numeral 4, the balance should not below
Ah, gotcha.
6 months operating. That's where the big chunk of it sits.
Well, and that's why I'm like, well, that's kind of funny because I assume the city had an operating fund.
For the library as well, though.
Or city employees, like that's, I don't know how the auditing would work,
Yeah, but we are that hybrid thing.
but, right,
I might not be
Sorry,
adding
hours.
anything to the conversation, but your 211 operating fund also has, the balance is desired to be at 6 months.
Mhm.
So
Mm,
like
that-
together you have a year of operating.
wait, what did you say?
Right here, there's a policy about the 211 operating fund for the library.
I think that
And
is
there's
what
a
you're,
goal written in there to have 6 months operating.
Oh, yeah,
And when we talked about this, I think it was February, the numbers were right where you want them to be. It's 6 months plus a little bit healthy, but the account ebbs and flows with the way that monies are deposited from county or from city and expenses that happen once a year.
So, account 211, we need to have 6 months of operating. And account 215, we need to have 6 months of operating.
The
So we
city would
have-
advise you that you need 25 to 50% operating expenses, so aiming for 6 is generous and healthy. And then the board decided, plus we want to do that in our 215.
Okay. And that's the part I don't quite understand.
yeah.
Why?
So
If
that's
we already
something,
do
that's,
that.
so that's something that we could amend as the board
Yeah.
and the policy, which I,
Yeah, I mean, and then again, we'd only be
Discussable.
running up against that rock if it's real.
Yeah.
But I agree, yeah, I mean, as the board, we can make that choice with those funds.
Mhm.
That does seem egregious. And I think that came up at another early, not us, board meeting with Jay, I remember.
Yeah, also, just, 1D there, the minimum balance for insurance deductible, like, at this point, it seems really arbitrary, like this policy. Like,
$10,000.
Yeah, I mean, that's an arbitrary number because in, well,
Yeah, and
Forever?
20 for computer replacement, I mean.
So the city's insurance deductible is still $10,000, and I know that from the flood. And we also
Okay.
had this situation with the flood because we flooded 3 times with
Mhm.
breaks in between that the insurance company wanted to bill us separately for each one and give us 3 insurance deductibles. That happened, but 10,000 is the recommended amount.
okay.
Yeah,
But
but
maybe
the
we should have
computers
that
might be a
tied.
little low.
Say like,
This is tied to, when that number changes, this number changes, rather than having said 10,000, because that is arbitrary. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So, yeah, okay.
Minimum balance is to be maintained in this account for number 1, insurance deductible, just like saying that.
Yeah,
or
whatever the,
insurance
yeah,
deductibles, current insurance, I'm sorry.
green.
And then the 20,000 computer replacement, like, absolutely, we need to replace computers, right?
and we know it's coming,
right,
so we
and
might
that's
as well
more of
just,
a capital plan if we're budgeting for
yeah, and I
Yeah.
think, aren't we
strength.
budgeting for that anyway?
Well, that was what we were hoping to,
No,
but not this year.
It's not something that's in the current operating budget.
Right.
okay,
It would be a capital
yeah,
okay,
expense.
Yeah.
In that sense. We had talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
And the more I learned about it, it sounded like the 211 cushion of 6 months would be where we would take money to absorb a technology. Like if we had to replace all of our computers to operate, it could be considered an operating expense. And it could be taken from the board could choose to spend from the balance. It's just that we have healthy funds. We have healthy donations and funds in the 215, and that's where we have been strategizing computer replacement. That and this year with the generous support of the Friends.
Also, the financial policy was created in 2015, and then we updated it in 2019. So I would have been here for the update. I just don't remember what the update was. Oh, I had a different thread.
One thing I know that happened about that time regards Duluth Superior Area Community Foundation. And the board found out that, or did they find out or just decide this? There was a lot of investigation into how these funds were doing for their return. And they made some changes as to where we would prefer donations to go. And they also decided that they would stop receiving annual interest checks from Duluth and just start reinvesting them. And you heard about this in my communication, what happened with that money. So instead of going into the 215, it went back into Duluth. And I know that those changes, I was here for those, so I think that would have been it.
I think it was 2018, maybe, that reinvestment.
Is that when it happened and then the policy was updated?
I'm sorry, I don't remember. But I guess the thread I was trying to grab again before was just, again, 1D. So we talked about that minimum balance to be maintained in the account, and it's got 1, 2, right? 30,000. And then the balance to be considered is that pronounced exigency?
Mhm.
Exigency?
Mhm.
Operating catastrophic circumstances, like the whole rest of the fund is to be held in case of a catastrophe? Is that what that says? The balance to be considered?
That is confusing.
It's very
It's
strange.
very
Or
confusing.
specifies what balance needs to be held.
Right. It's very, very strange. So I think, yeah, we could do some cleanup here.
Yeah, I mean, it could use some amending. Yeah, what are they saying?
I think probably intentions were to try to bring clarity with the examples, but when it says not limited to, it just says possible but not limited to. I mean, that just doesn't
Not helpful
say
to us
anything.
today.
But it doesn't say it, right. Yeah, and I think we've always been spending out, or the intention was to spend out of 216. Whether it's for trim or partitioning or any of the building stuff. It's on memory. So. But so the reason we're not at 0 in the 215 is because this whole list is maybe intended to go to the 216, or that's what I mean, because we're in the negative here. Is that
So like when I ask him how much is in the 215, we're looking at a bunch of projects that we want to do, and she would say, well, you have 270, you have 270,000,
And that was
use your policy K and that, and then she would say, and there's this 70,000, I need to move money out of the money markets to zero that out, and I would say, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So I think it's a miscommunication between us and how this is functioning. And she kept saying, this amount is the Hazel Matthews, but that didn't equal in my brain that these two accounts function the way that they do.
So we have to zero it out, and according to our policy, we also have to add 30,000 plus 6 months operate, right?
70,000 plus 30,000 plus 6 months operating.
So then,
Hazel Matthews is like halved, right? Or
that would be about right.
and then we just want clarity on what we legally can do. I mean, the policy has examples of possibilities, but it doesn't have restrictions, aside from the minimum balances, which we can change or whatever.
Yeah, I
Holy
mean,
cow.
if those aren't tied to statute in any way, which I don't think they are, then we're free to decide as a board or trustees to amend that to fit our current purposes, which is the whole reason to say, and whatever else comes up, so that we can do that. Yeah, I mean, so we have some work ahead of us, I guess.
Yeah.
But once we get clarity on the whole legalese, I think that will make it a whole lot easier for us to say, like, yep, consolidate, we'll rewrite this language so it makes sense to us.
Well, so it makes sense to us and to the people who serve on the board after us.
Yeah, that's our hope. And
That's
I'm
the
sure the
hope.
people before us thought they were.
Yeah, well,
But we'll do our
of course,
best.
we don't know what it was like before they were.
Yeah, right,
So-
exactly.
And this came to a head because of the discussion around the security door, right?
Right.
Emergency exit, or security doors, or emergency exit, or just the whole
Yeah.
security
The whole thing,
things, and then the board running into like, wait, we don't have
the fun.
much funds, which if the Hazel Matthews is halved, say, there would still be, I think, enough to do those, but was there this hesitation because it's depleting significantly, or
There wouldn't have been, because if we're at 270, that is 6 months and 30,000. or close, that is very
thank
close
you.
to it.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
But if we want to move on into the
Gotcha.
communications, Amanda had a memo for us about other funds that might be available that wouldn't cover the full amount. The Duluth Superior Area Community Foundation has a spendable amount.
Oh, yeah, 30 grand or something.
Would you like me to share? Do I need to do a thing? Should I share this with everyone?
Yeah, if you would go over the memo
Okay.
included.
Yeah. So, with talking about the emergency exit and the security camera improvements, with taking that look at the financial standing of the board, one of the jobs that I had was to get clarification on spendable amounts from our community foundations. And I confirmed with the Duluth Superior Area Community Foundation that you have a spendable amount of $33,426. I talked a little bit a moment ago about how that money came to be, is that the endowment fund continues in perpetuity, generating a return of about 4.25% on the fund balance over a 12-quarter period. And this is currently about $5,900. The market does fluctuate. It's not a fixed number. In 2018, okay, so that's David, that's where that's coming from. In 2018, the trustees requested that annual checks from the endowment be reinvested rather than added to the 215, and that results in the spendable amount. You can continue to there are options for you that you can take using this money. You can continue to reinvest the annual checks. You can redirect them for deposit to the 215. And you can also withdraw up to the total spending amount of $33,426. I would strongly recommend that we take the $33,426 spendable amount and $11,000 from Hazel Matthews and implement the emergency exit project. Before you do that, we should have a conversation about the exit and be sure that we're all on a page about where it's going, why it's going, what the scope of the project is.
So the 11, tell me about the 11 coming from the Matthews.
The quotes for the emergency exit are $42,000 to $48,000.
But we're
The
saying-
Duluth Superior would provide you $33,400 of that, and then you would have a balance
so we take-
to equal the quote.
At this point, we're not at a point we could take that 11,000, correct? I mean, we would have to change our policy in order to make that happen. And we would have to make sure that we don't have to keep a balance, correct?
Well, everyone just discussed that the Hazel Matthews has been used for building.
Yeah,
So I'm just saying that, but 215 or Hazel Matthews, I think both apply. Like the 215 specifies that you can use it for building
Right, and I guess I'm
and
not
security.
disputing that, but I'm saying that we have at least right now, the way things are written, we have a balance that we are supposed to maintain. And so I think that we can do that, but we couldn't do that yet. I would say we have to change the policy and agree on it and do all those things, and then we could do that. I don't think we could do that at this point. That would be my,
Because of the minimums.
yeah,
the
because I
minimum
don't think
balances.
we can do,
And so we're at the minimum. Sorry,
because
did
we
you say-
are negative and then we're at par is what I
Aren't we
understand.
negative in the 215, not in the 216?
Right, we're
Right.
negative in the 215, but we have funds in the 216.
but do we
But we're not
And
100% clear on whether we can, how we move money from 216 to 215, if that's within the scope of our uses of 216.
Did you say we needed 271 in there?
Close to it, I think we could get an exact number from Kim,
And that's based on
the 6 months and 30,000.
or 216.
Let's see.
Wait. 216 doesn't have.
Doesn't have that requirement, but
Right.
215 does, which is currently at -70. So
Yeah.
we've got to do something with that. So our year-end budget for 24 was $465,000. So call it 230,000 would be 6 months of operating expenses
Plus the 30.
plus the 30. So we would be close, but
So we have to move basically all of 216 into 215
in order to be
in order to meet
compliance.
policy. And I think we should just consult with Kim about the policy. And Mike, like, what's the why? What does this mean?
To what, so the board wrote the policy. What do you want them to answer for us so I can?
Good point.
I mean, we could, yeah, I mean, we can change the policy. That's certainly within our ability.
It doesn't make sense to me, the policy.
No.
Yeah, and I mean,
And I
if there's
voted
no,
for it.
and if there's no statute that says that we have to do this or that, then I don't see that it points us, that nowhere in there is it pointing to anything, any other legal, anything.
Well, I see that there is a path to redo policy, redo things.
Mm-hmm.
And we're weighing that against the security and safety of residents and workers.
Mm.
So I would say that we take the 30,000, the money from the North Shore or the Duluth Fund, and target the 216 specifically for the remaining balance, while at the same time working to consolidate what is left of the two different accounts to the policy.
So that's what we wish could happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I think that we should follow along with proper procedure and,
Yes.
and do it step by step.
Yes.
I think you're right in the direction we want to go. But I think we follow it.
I would agree. I mean,
Yeah, we can change the policy, it's,
I know why I wanted to talk to Mike and Kim was because if they had any perspective on why we would need this 6-month operating, like.
yeah,
because
on
I-
top of,
Right, Yeah.
yeah, like to have 6 and 6. It's like,
right, the both and.
there are a lot of, unanswered questions.
Sure,
Hopefully we can
yeah,
find some answers.
yeah. So maybe that's right, exactly where we're at. Like, we'd like to know that.
Mm-hmm.
We'd like to know about the legalese of that. You have to keep a
And we'd like
balance
to
of.
know if the
What is
rule
the-
can be, I don't know, not changed exactly.
Well, and
And,
I
because
don't think we would necessarily be, I mean, other than that addendum, we're kind of clear in
Okay,
being able
okay.
to do it. In my, just,
Okay.
what am I? I'm not a lawyer. But, just reading that, it sounds like, okay, maybe there's something, let's get clarity. And if there's nothing there, then,
Yeah,
It sounds like we can like do it all and be within policy.
mm-hmm.
I think maybe if the numbers line up because did you say 260 for 6 months plus? Oh, the
230 would be
so
about
230
6
but
plus
then also
30,
the 30, so that's the
260.
And so then we have
And
8.
we have outstanding,
And we have
so-
outstanding.
Oh, plus the 70. Is that this?
Right, I did not factor in the 70.
Yeah, so that's taking
So
away.
that's going to totally
Yeah.
go against policy. Okay.
Yeah. That's why we're,
Mhm.
so, but we definitely we can do that. We can change policy
Mhm.
for next time. We can, get some clarity, some legalese on that puppy. And
Okay, so you and Kevin are gonna work on a plan.
Go through documents, but I mean, we've got bids in for this project, and it is, I think, what we're all intending.
Well,
well,
could we?
Or are we not? Maybe we can.
Could
talk
maybe
more
we
about it.
talk a little bit more about that project?
yeah, I would, I wanna, if we could separate these
Yeah.
issues, because I would definitely,
Yeah,
Being able
because
to do the-
whether or not we go ahead with the project, we should still
Yes.
think
Yeah.
about our policy. So
Yes.
that's kind of a
Yeah.
related but separate issue.
right. I mean, it brings it to the fore, but
Yeah.
got it, for sure. Agreed.
So,
I've got some directions, I've got some tasks written down.
All right.
Excellent.
Is this anything you need to move in second or?
I don't, Kevin's our man. Is there something there? I don't think
I
so.
don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think we've
got
got
it.
I think we're in discussion. There's
Yeah,
no,
There's
Yeah.
a
All right.
plan to
Yeah.
get to where we might be able to make a motion.
Okay.
we're getting there.
We're just trying to be legal here.
Don't want to break anything.
And under old business, we have review the strategic plan, which is just on the agenda to keep it
Fresh.
at forefront. So if anyone has anything we need to discuss, we can certainly do that. Otherwise, I suggest we move on to the emergency exit proposals and have a discussion about those.
okay.
Well, I've been thinking a lot about this. And the question that comes up to me in my mind is, what are we trying to do? And we're trying to enhance safety, but maybe not create 100% safe environment. Such a thing doesn't exist.
Doesn't
Yeah.
exist. We're
Doesn't.
trying. but-
We're trying though.
Yeah.
But maybe we should review what safety improvements the library's instituted so far.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because there have been a lot. So Amanda, do you
I'm
wanna
ready.
just kind of look at that?
She's ready.
So, some of the safety improvements and changes that have happened so far are as follows. I've banned 2 patrons from the library permanently
Mhm.
and reinforced that with trespass orders through the Cook County Sheriff's Office. Those trespass orders to date have been successful. We do have experience with one of the individuals returning when the trespass orders are expired, and so I've proactively submitted new trespass orders. They expire every year and they can't be extended. To date, to my knowledge, the individuals have not returned, so this has been an effective measure for the unique situation that we had, for the specific experience that we had. I upgraded our security system and installed silent alarms. The upgrade allowed us to reduce time, the response time from the call center from 1 minute and 30 seconds to immediately. We installed a security door between the public and staff work areas. I relocated a staff person's workstation to a place that felt safer and more defensible. Ideally, we would open that workstation back up, and this brings us back to the conversation of the emergency exit and its ability to service this room and that desk. I provided staff run, hide, fight training with the sheriff, and this month Sheriff Eliason is returning to do this training citywide. I installed some opaque window cling like what you see behind you, although this piece was already here. And I also have a piece of one-way privacy film on the staff exit door to reduce visibility from one side to the other of the person on the other side of the glass in all of the cases. I installed a camera and a monitor at the staff exit to help increase our visibility of what's happening outside before we exit, and worked with the city to install a street light to illuminate the streets outside where we are parking, since we don't have a parking lot. I installed an intercom system so that we could communicate with the public from a remote space if needed. And I purchased and I'm working. Oh yeah, I got the Blink cameras. So we're moving towards security cameras with the Blink, which is purchased, and then we're waiting for the policy to install those. I would say those are the,
And
Right.
about how much has all of that cost?
It's in the $10,000 range. So
Done a lot in a short time.
Mm-hmm.
it's been a year. It's
So-
been a whole year.
I have been thinking about the door and the fact that, you know, it would open back outside here in the front. To my mind, I'm not a security expert, but it doesn't seem like it would be necessarily that much safer.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering whether putting in the door and all of that, is it really a significant improvement given the cost and time, energy, modification to the building? And maybe we could review for a minute what the contractors say, but what especially Homeland Security said, because I believe Homeland Security had some recommendations too.
Yeah. And I think jumping on what Nancy's saying there, if we look back, he wasn't really recommending the door.
That's right.
I mean, he said there are probably better uses
Yes.
of our time,
Yes.
money, energy. So I'm not inclined towards the door myself.
And you know, I'm considering two other locations in town. Like, what do you have at the new city hall as far as?
As far as emergency exit, yeah, I guess we have, well, for clearing the room, you mean? Like
Yeah.
the city hall room? Yeah. I mean, I guess there's a back hall that we can get into.
I mean, we do have a back door.
Mhm.
There is a door over here on
Yeah.
the staff side. And so thinking about other locations in town, the new city hall, what about the co-op?
Mhm.
What about Bucks? What are their safety features?
IGA, you're not.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the places you go do not have an exit everywhere you wish there was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I got to thinking too, we could, you know, we've done a lot. We could put in the door and all of that, and supposedly it would all be safe. But, you know, there was something that happened in the cities recently where a restaurant, a drunk drove in. What would happen if something like that happened here? Or if someone, because this has happened in the past, people lose control of their car, something happens with the mechanism in the car, or you know, God forbid, a big truck. There's no 100%.
Yeah.
We do the best we can. I think we've done a lot.
Yeah.
So
You know,
that's
security or extra door isn't necessarily for just some kind of security because you got a bad guy someplace.
yeah.
Because, you know, lived in Joplin, Missouri for a long time, and they
Mhm.
had a hell of a lot of number of people killed in a tornado, almost 200 people in 2011. And one of the reasons there was not because they couldn't get out of the building, because they got into the buildings that were constructed the way that they would collapse if there was a wind lifting the roof, because the roof held the sides.
Mm.
They got out where they were supposed to get out. They got to where they were supposed to get. They got to where they were supposed to be, and still killed them.
Yeah.
So there's reasons to have these things. You know, it isn't storm related. You know, we're not going to be as prone to tornadoes and things like that here as they were in Joplin. But you know, there's other things besides.
What about the contractors? What did they say about modifications to the building?
Contractors want us to tell them where to put the door. So they can't tell us, contractors were not in a position to tell us that the installation of the door would succeed in protecting people from a threat. They just want to know, where do you want the door and to put it in. The contractors, I'm speaking specifically about construction individuals that I have worked with, they seem a little surprised that we're willing to move forward with a project of this expense for what you're getting. One contractor said that your building meets code requirements and the door that you want to install is for convenience. These individuals are not living in our library. They are not serving our patrons. They just are really good at modifying buildings and the help that we need, but they're not understanding what it's like to be in the building. Does that help? So
Well,
that
I'm just
their
wondering if-
perspective is different.
Was there any sense of how it would affect the structure, the overall structure of the library? Would it be neutral? Would it possibly undermine the structure? Would it, I don't know. Did they have anything to say about that?
Let's talk about the placement. So the room we want to serve with an emergency exit is the space right here. And there are two viable walls, which I'm calling the west wall and the south wall, and I hope I got that right. Because I think we're on a pivot, right? This wall was assessed, and the contractors are consistent in saying this wall is a load-bearing wall, and there would need to be structural engineering done to get the door in. They were talking to me about the corbels outside. They're also concerned because all of the snow is coming off the roof in this direction that it increases the likelihood of a blockade, which would make the door not operable in an emergency unless staff are keeping that open. This site over here, it was unanimous among all of the individuals that I spoke with about being the ideal site for the door. For example, a contractor said, I don't have it here. This site is ideal because of the structural challenges over here. This is the best wall for the door. Now the contractors aren't looking at this from the perspective of a scenario.
Right.
They're just looking at which space is more viable and cost effective for you to consider.
Well, I do come back to that question about, and for me, I thought it was, I think it's worth noting that the person from Homeland Security did not really feel that this was a good use of our money. And so I really think we have to ask ourselves, is this a significant improvement given the cost in time, energy, modification to the building?
I think, I understand what you're saying. I think it was a staff preference, like maybe a number one feature for safety, and so, if our intention is to retain staff, and you're right, they can't always be 100% safe, but if the feeling was that would make people feel safer, but I hear what you're saying. It's a lot of money. It's not a small decision,
And if the security experts are saying, I think that's something that we should really give good consideration to.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with that. It wasn't at the top of their list. I realize it's at the top of our list, and I think that we're all sympathetic to that.
Yeah.
But again, things change when finances change.
Yeah.
Certainly, if we had a little more money, you could think about it.
Endless
but I feel like-
stream of money would help, wouldn't it?
What's that?
Endless stream of money would really
That's right.
make
That would
this
be great.
easier. I mean, then it would
But-
be an absolute, oh yeah, we can do that.
Yeah. But then we have to think, like, is that really, and we are limited, so we do have to think, like, is this the best use of those funds right now?
Right.
And I don't know.
Changing the policies, even if it takes 2 or 3 months, I mean, I think everybody around here agrees that having 6 months worth of operating funds in a reserved fund or it's already covered on the other by operating expenses is pretty
Well.
yeah, bull hockey. So there are funds that are going to be readily available for this. It isn't that we're going to cut staff. It isn't that we're not going to get new computers. It isn't that it's just that we're not following the policy right now written that we agree that is a bad policy.
Yeah, and yet I'm not gonna go off campus with you on this one. I mean, I like a bender, but I think really following the policy is the way to go, even if we want to go that direction. I think we should change the policy. I think we should amend. I think we should get the legalese, and then we can
I would agree.
talk about the spending after
I would
that.
agree.
If we're
Let's
gonna spend.
decouple the two.
Well, yeah, I mean,
In a
but they
sense.
can be coupled in a sense, because then
Yeah.
you would definitely have the funds
That's true.
to do the door.
But the policy, even without the door, the policy should be.
Oh, yeah. Either
Yeah,
way,
absolutely.
but we know what our marching orders are. We get the
Yeah,
policy
right.
square. We make sure that, Kim and our lawyers say like, yep, good to go. Then we say, okay, we've got the money now. Now we can make a choice.
Right.
Let's say we can definitely pay for this,
Yeah.
or
But let's
can't.
do a little more consideration
Oh,
while we're waiting.
for sure.
Shall we do
But
that?
we've done a lot of talking. I
We
mean, we've done a lot of research, a lot of that kind of stuff. So I feel like we do have a lot of information.
Yeah.
Um,
But since we can't make that, we will choose not to make that decision right now till we get the funds taken care of.
okay. I'm
Let's just
fine with that.
Let it
That works.
percolate. Can we do that?
Trustees?
It's hard. It's a really expensive thing. People want it.
What we want is to give people a way out in a space that feels like a death trap to us, in a space where we house our most precious members of our community. It's our children's room and our public programming space where we put a lot of people in here. And that's why we feel so passionate about it. At least I can speak for myself. That's why I do.
That's helpful to hear.
Thank you.
So on the proposed, I really appreciate this printout. On the proposed facility modifications, there's also the interior remote locking doors.
So in my proposal to the board, or in the modification I recommended for the strategic plan, it doesn't include those doors. But if, so we had talked about how great an idea it would be. We talked about go big, go home. We talked about solve the safety problem rather than, before we talk about how much it would cost. And so I do have one quote on internal locking doors that would be worth pursuing if we continue down a path where I'm finding funding for one or all of these projects. Like if I could get that into a larger grant situation, that's kind of what the direction I would want to go. So you can take 15,000 off of the combined work if you want to look at it that way. But when I'm thinking about it in terms of grant land, I would want it.
I'm sorry, the last thing you said? Grant
said
land, I want
it- If I were pursuing grants
Yeah.
and creating a proposal and the grant allowed for it, I would want that in there for sure. Like it would be a very nice to have
Yes.
feature for
I would
being
agree.
able to complete a lockdown in our building.
I would agree.
Our priority is the emergency exit from the staff perspective.
That's helpful.
Sure.
And maybe we can do the door and then next year do the interior locking doors. Because we piled on all of this in a real short time. This is part of the reason we're running out of money.
Yeah.
Could we say that we're going to wait on the door till next month when we figure out our money?
Yeah.
And then if we've got the money,
How valid are the quotes? How long are the quotes valid?
that's a good question.
I can't imagine they're gonna change dramatically.
The one that you would, well, that, I mean,
That's gonna happen,
yeah.
not happen.
The one that I think is the most likely to go away would be Johnson Wilson. They were very interested in taking this project on if it worked in their schedule with other projects they're doing up here this summer.
They're also the most expensive, so if that quote were to be lost from us, I don't think we would be in a worse position.
I don't think so.
I would agree. I mean, they, if I remember right, they are willing to do all the, or at least they mentioned more things in there about the disposal, that kind of thing. If I yeah.
Yeah.
They just said the words. It doesn't mean that the other people were. But yeah, I would agree. I think that we change the policy,
Mhm.
get our money, maybe buy a door.
Be a lot easier once you have the money nailed down.
No, we change the policy.
And I mean, I think
Chris, you don't need the money up front. You need the money later.
But
So
you need to know you have it.
You need
Yeah.
to know you have it.
Spending money you don't have, maybe.
He manages our church. He does it all the time.
Oh, I see.
Robbing Peter to pay Paul is
It's professionally.
That's all I'm suggesting. Is that, I mean, you don't even have, you can have everything changed and, you know, to your satisfaction. And that's when you're gonna need the money, but you can contract for it earlier. It
Mm.
seems to me.
I see.
You know, it's just like playing the, you know, the whole game about how, when am I gonna submit that invoice? You know, do I have the money now or do I have it on Monday? Okay, I'll wait till Friday the next week because I got 3-day grace.
Mhm.
Playing that game.
It's a good game.
It is.
Yeah.
I would like to bring up a safety concern and also a scope aspect of this project. There are more than a couple of people, myself included, who are concerned about putting a door in over here and then sending people right back out to the main door where a threat could circle round. The way that we could have a conversation about that is if we is just giving people a way out, giving them access to a safe space, giving them a choice. Does that equal that they get that this door is helping us succeed in getting people to a safer place? Another way to look at it is what architectural additions would be needed to create screening or a cover that would allow people to move a different direction around the building than straight toward the front door. Another way to talk about this is, do we put it over there where it is right next to the door, or do we look, so all of my quotes, I'm talking about the placement of the door, all of my quotes are for that location for the reason that I talked about. Cost effective and structurally bearing on the south wall. I can pursue projects that go out the front door and that work with the architect.
front wall.
Out the, I want the door. If we put the door here and people are exiting that way, like we could go back to BTR architects and ask them to create screening, create rock wall, create something that helps provide cover, directing people to a specific direction. I just want to be clear that the project that I am recommending meets the requirement of helping people exit the building, and that this consideration is perhaps not fully addressed by the location that I'm recommending.
There's no perfect spot.
I'm very concerned about people going back out the front.
Everyone's said that at one time or another. It is a flaw with the idea. It's got so many structural advantages, but it isn't the perfect place to spit people out.
Is this, I'm assuming this one would be a load structure.
Well, there
There's
is
already
one
a door
door
over
there
there.
Well, it's over there, but if we created a doorway here, then people could funnel here, go out that door, and then,
Like a double door,
Well, I
two
mean-
doors out.
create another doorway here. So that they can so everybody can funnel in here and then go out that side door. On that side, then they'd be away from the main entrance, they'd be away from.
So they need two doors. You would
Yeah,
add two
well,
doors.
we need a door right here and then a door on the end, and so that on the end, then we'll be
Mhm.
reducing some of the.
I see what you're saying.
Also, these double windows, it'd be a shame to lose them, but they would fit a door. Like, you wouldn't have to modify the structure for the double windows.
Yeah.
I
There's still
think-
the snow issue is
yeah.
still there.
And the load bearing issue.
No, because there's already a header above those
Yeah,
windows,
there's
so you don't need to modify the structure. It's all just within that framing already.
You could just put a porch roof. That's not a porch roof, but
Yeah, a little
Yeah.
crook sort of thing. A
yeah,
little gable.
that would go out to the sidewalk, and then so it wouldn't be, the snow wouldn't be on there.
Yeah,
So-
with 6
oh,
feet of
yeah.
Snow out
Oh, I
there,
gotcha.
where are they gonna go?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, if the people
have
who
to
do the
shovel
sidewalks also do
Yeah.
that, then it's.
I meant to tell, I'm sorry, I cut you off again. God darn it, won't you ever let me speak? No, so another thing that one of the construction people said is to manage the snow, they felt that they would have to rework the roof line. Going out this way, if they were to engineer a solution to help move the snow, they would rework the roof line. And then there were questions about whether you want your landscaping to be a part of being bulldozed.
Goes your garden.
That seems extreme.
Mm.
It would be impacted, but
That seems like a surmountable problem.
Yeah.
we can.
Yeah, that's not the thing.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember winters, and there are huge snow piles right out there.
Yeah,
right?
because it all just.
I'm actually really interested in your idea. Like if there was an archway or a door,
Just over the.
I think
Archway.
people would have to figure it. Like we have to teach people where the exits are.
Yeah,
If
you're
it
saying
was
the
in-
double door.
This going this way,
If it went this way.
Two doors that way.
but there isn't any. Is there a pitch going that way? Off that wall?
That's
There
another
isn't.
gable end, I think. Like,
Is it? Okay.
I think, yeah, because everything's sloping down here, right?
Oh, okay. Well, that'd be a better.
Seems less exposed over there.
I think too it doesn't serve the desk, which was one of the concerns, is that this person is still having to try to come, like that desk would have to be modified
And the little kids.
if we were.
And the children's area.
Yeah.
That's,
Okay, so that's how I arrived at the solution that I did.
Like this was the original kind of area, right, of preferred exit, but then there's a bunch going on right there, and it's right by the front entrance.
Ryan, where was the original location that staff wanted the door? I'm just asking you because I thought you had maybe talked with Brian about it.
Oh, last summer when Brian gave us a quote, we were looking over there originally, yes. But I think the staff's preference would actually be to do it in that double window over there.
The second one in?
Yeah.
Or the
Yeah.
first one or
Second,
second?
I like that. That's
I-
innovation.
Snapped some measurements myself. It's between these corbels, we call them, supports of the eaves. It's about 83 inches, which is just under 7 feet. And I think a 3-foot door, you pitch the jamb, you could open completely and still swing open. And you wouldn't have to move those.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The corbels.
So that would be a staff preference. I think a door in this general corner would be better than nothing. Would be the staff's preference. The people are in here
Mhm.
40 hours a week.
So over the furthest west one, is it because just kind of the corner is a little more valuable as far as usable space, or?
I think that would be a fine option too.
Well, no, I'm just wondering.
I
how
mean,
did
just
the
thinking
second-
in terms of, if an active shooter
Yeah.
was planning to just circle back around and go out there, yes, that would be more exposed right over there
Mhm.
than it would be here where you'd have a
Oh,
bigger head start.
Yep, yep.
This is more visible,
Mhm.
so it's about visibility. But
Yep.
I would say either one of those double windows would probably be preferable. But that's just me, okay? I think, looking at, the option of snow, yeah, there's going to be some snow. If you look at this emergency exit back here, there's a pitch on that roof. There is just a metal bar. And I assume Lenny takes care of that. Of the snow that piles over there.
Yeah.
So
Same deal.
Yeah.
it's it's a consideration.
But we could just put a little eve thing.
Yeah,
Like
could just put anything in. Yep. So
Well, the way the library is laid out now, and it can always
could
change.
change. Yeah.
Right. The second one, I can visualize that. There's not a
Yeah.
couch in front of it.
that.
It's the book
true.
pile is right there, and so it wouldn't interrupt flow, like workflow or space flow or any of that. So that makes sense to me.
Mhm.
A door there would look okay on the outside of the building too, I think. I always thought that one of these double window spaces, it's the design of the building, it kind of features these windows. But if you had a door there and it was a nice wide door, it would look okay.
So I'm hearing that we should maybe ask for new quotes on that
Yeah, well, sure.
to explore this, and let's move on to the next agenda item.
Please.
Yeah, we're not quite ready, are we?
Well, it'll be a lot cheaper to
I
not
think so.
cut into a wall, I think.
Yeah.
So
It's, yeah, I mean, it's already
It's
Already
already
set up
cut
for it.
into.
Yeah.
All right, and we've got the draft budget.
Maybe I don't.
the paper ones, okay.
Ooh, paper. Half the time.
Today's a paper day. It's a sad paper extravaganza.
Thank
are
you
you
for
trying
the
to say?
memo going over.
No, I put in here. I had one somewhere, I thought. Thanks.
We had talked about whether or not we wanted to put programming into the operational budget. Whether we wanted to dedicate funds annually to programming so that we weren't fully dependent on grants.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So that's something we may want to add in.
And what is it here? And I'm just missing it. Like we didn't like plunk it in. Like
We did
here's-
not plunk it in, yeah.
Okay, so
What has the program been running?
Last year I asked for $15,600. But let's break down what some of that is. If you were to do a summer reading program, our programs run $2,000 to $2,500. If we did winter reading program, it would be an additional $2,000 at least. That one has a lot more prizes. The summer one has a picnic. The adult programs, I think, are running $4,000. We try to do 4 holiday celebrations. They're Earth Day, Juneteenth, Pride, and I missed Indigenous Peoples Day. Thank you so much, Ryan. Ask the specialist; he knows it all. We consider those our core, like more of our core programs, and then there are the additional programs that happen around that. And I'm trying to think what the other amounts were. I know that part of it would be film series that we try to do in the winter time is usually 10 weeks long, and the licensing structures have changed so that the cost of that program has gone up a little bit. I'm trying to remember if we do like $1,500 to $2,000 for that program. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of what you would achieve.
Would it make sense to just put $20,000 in the budget? You said about
Well,
15,000 is what you've.
Yeah,
Could
and
we
was that,
afford that?
and that was last year. Do you have any other years that you can point to? Just trying to get a sense of like, was last year a high year? Was it a low year?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Last year we had 2 full-time librarian ones functioning in the library for the first time with capacity. So we had capacity, we had staffing, and that was those were the levels. And then before that we had flood and pandemic, so it's a dead space. Before that it was 2019 when Steve was here, and we were staffed differently again.
So last year is probably the best we've got.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm. And we've been paying for it. Like Friends has mostly been paying for it in the past.
Yeah.
More or less.
There are Library Friends of Cook County are very generous in supporting our programs, and their fundraising program with the annual book sale that used to happen with Fisherman's Picnic, that had a fluctuation. It went away when we lost storage for the materials of the Friends books throughout the year, and then they were in the process of finding a new fundraising strategy, and they have their new very successful program with odds and ends, but they also are receiving other grants and monies that are not guaranteed. And so this is part one, having a program budget approved by the board backed by our monies allows me to work with my 2 librarian ones and give them a budget they can spend rather than chasing between developing a program and trying to get the funding piecemeal. And then, sorry, you guys, I'm getting tired.
Yeah.
I don't know what I was trying to answer for you.
She asked about $20,000 would be enough.
Oh,
Well, I think it'd be enough.
yeah, no, it would be enough.
It would be enough.
It
I
would
mean, maybe,
And
maybe
maybe-
it's, we want to just go with 15.
Yeah.
But
Or
I
it
think
might
it's a
shoot
good,
a
I
little-
think it's a good move
Absolutely.
to have it in there because.
Oh, I think it should be in there for
Yeah.
sure, especially since that's fluctuating, and that is what a lot of what people, not all what people think, but that's a big piece of what people think of when they think
Absolutely.
about the library.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So for sure, I'm wondering if it might be a little lower because we probably will still get some monies from Friends, and so maybe just because I could see that getting pointed at by council
Okay,
to say
well-
or county, like cut that, raise the,
Well, we have one librarian doing.
Yeah, so that'll
One-
reduce. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. There's
Yeah,
only so
maybe
much
for
capacity
programs.
anyway. right now.
I mean, I guess maybe we shouldn't budget for that. Maybe we should budget for 2 because that's what we're hoping for.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
we could certainly
Our
budget
budget
for
is
two.
set to
No, I
have
mean,
2
not-
full-time employees.
Oh, two for programming.
Programming
For
wise,
Yes.
not
programming,
for
yeah.
salary.
Yeah.
So we'll budget it, but we could budget at 10 and then know that we'll have some fundraising in there.
You know, I don't know when, you know, how people will look at this when we propose the budget. But what if we budgeted it for 15
And then we can cut.
and then said, oh, you really think that's too much? Let's go down to 10.
One thing that happens that I've seen is, so we have a joint powers agreement between the city and the county.
Yes.
And if the increase is beneath 5%, the county has to adopt it.
Ah,
They can provide feedback. But then because of that, there is heightened attention around that 5% increase. And even at the city level. So we are wanting to remain good stewards of money and also have an operational budget that supports what we're doing.
okay. Well, if we add it,
Well, 5% of 50,000 is 25,000.
wait a minute. If we
Like
add it,
$50,000, 10% is $5,000.
if we add it to the budget, I mean, what's, I'm not obviously a numbers
1%
person, but
is 5,000.
what's our fudge factor, so to speak? We've got this budget proposed. It's, if I remember, it's a little bit less than last year.
It is, it's a 1% decrease from last
Okay,
year.
so if we want to add for programming, do we have a fudge factor
That would keep us below 5%.
that would keep us below
increase.
5%?
Yeah, and that would be what we need to do.
Then that's what we need to do.
Yeah. 'Cause, yeah.
Well, and I would just suggest that we try to shoot as straight as we can.
Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
instead of like the tact or the strategy of, you know, negotiating. I think if we have good reason for whatever number it is, just this is what we've
Okay, well,
been spending on programming,
Yeah.
then let's do that.
well, I'd rather do that, but if we're going to get increased scrutiny to the point where maybe it'll get thrown out of the budget, then we want to stay within that 5%. That's my point.
Yes.
Well, it'd just be nice to see like what that is. You
Yeah.
know, to see like what that number would be and
Wanna
just so
be
that we
numbers
know
people?
like,
Well, yeah,
okay,
the 10% is 50,000, so
Okay.
5% would be 25,000 ish.
Ish.
So 20 would be within that.
Mhm.
15 would
15
be,
would certainly be.
yeah. Or
Yeah.
if, I mean, is that? I'm sorry, I had to use the restroom, but is 15 the number that was last year? And
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, 15 was last
15
year.
and it sounds like we won't have the capacity
right
this
right.
year. So we could say 10, which will give us some
And then the
room
library friends.
in the library.
Sounds like.
right?
Didn't
Yeah.
you say this before? Where is this though? in
It's
the-
not in
It's
here.
not in there.
That's what I
It's
brought.
not in there. That's why we
Yes,
can't find
maybe you're in the
Yeah,
bathroom. I asked that too.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
that's what it was.
I move we
Well,
add,
and
I
we
move we
also-
add $12,000 into the budget for programming.
What's that?
Support.
I move that we move add $12,000 onto the budget for
I
programming.
say 11,500.
I already seconded it.
Oh, damn.
Slow down, fast car. Motion and second.
Any discussion? 11.5. No, I'm just kidding.
Any
Don't worry.
further discussion?
11-2.
I'm just really excited for this, and
Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah,
much more accurate and a
It should have been
very
done.
valued
Mhm.
part of the library community. So yeah, it's really nice that we would normally have a decrease, right? That makes it easier to do this too.
Yeah. And usually what we get hung up on are the things we can't control, like insurance. That's
Yeah.
usually what always bites us in the butt.
Now, did we talk about the reason for the decrease?
Yeah, because there's only going to be, there's
One
not going to,
librarian, one,
yeah, yeah.
and then part-time is decreased here too.
Can you
Or it'll
explain
be-
it to us
It'll be full-time, but not at the same salary.
in a nice,
It's
slow
a separate
manner so
one.
that he has to cross his legs?
what? Did you just say?
No,
Oh.
Is it, Amanda, is it not that there'll be 2 full-time librarians, but the new person will come in at a slightly lower salary?
It is true. We have a newer employee right now, and next year we will have a new librarian 1, which brings those rates down. And it
that's the
has to do
1%.
with the step increases and how they
Mhm.
land
Mm.
for the staff salaries. I actually thought we'd have a higher budget this year
Mhm.
because of how it's looked. And I mean,
Mhm.
I asked Sarah to check my work because I was like, this looks surprising. And also because we increased the budget to accommodate landscaping for next year, and then
Mhm.
the 2 or 3 pieces of software. But it's negative.
It's a little difficult. Like we're looking at 24, 23, 22, all of that. Those are the year ends. Those are the,
Yeah, those are year ends.
wow. Such round numbers in 24.
Isn't that pretty?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that one's
An estimate or something.
sure.
I think, yeah,
It's
well,
just surprising to me that they're like inflation,
Hmm.
right?
Mhm.
Like, where is that in here?
Well,
Whatever. I'm trying to find it.
no.
So we do have a
When
motion
I-
on the
when-
table.
Oh, yeah.
I think we might lose track of where we're at.
Another.
I vote
before
yes.
Putting that in is if times get tough and we really have to rein in the budget, it will be in the budget.
Mhm.
you know.
Yes.
And
Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yep.
I'm thinking
Yep.
about
Yep.
the St.
Like
Paul.
even if it gets reduced, I see what you're
Yeah,
saying.
yeah,
Yep.
no, I'm thinking
Yep.
about the St. Paul Library.
Mhm.
Their board is the city council, that's another thing. But St. Paul passed it was by vote, that the library appropriation would never be taken out of the city budget.
Nice.
It can be reduced, but it can never be taken out, and that's now statute. Now, this obviously is not statute, but same idea, if we've got it in,
Mm-hmm.
and next year or the
Yeah,
year
that's a
after,
question.
it'll be there. And if it's there, it'll be harder to take out. If we don't put it in, we won't put it in the future necessarily.
We have
That's
a
my
request to move on to the vote.
Yeah, let's move on to the vote.
Wait.
All right,
Thank
so
you,
this is
Sarah.
Point
to
of
add
privilege. No, just kidding.
Okay.
12,000 to the budget for programming. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All
Thank you.
right. Thank you all.
I
That
move
concludes
to
our
adjourn.
board meeting.
One quick question.
No.
Yes.
Why,
What?
I didn't, I've been going to meeting, so I didn't read the thing. We sent in, we're talking about changing some bylaws. It's not on the agenda. Is it going to
Because
be
this
on the
agenda
agenda?
was so full. So I think if we can fit it on
Okay.
June's,
All right.
we'll do that.
Do you want to stay? You want to do it?
No, no.
Okay.
I was just making sure we didn't lose sight of it.